Katie Morrison sat alone at the back of the briefing room. She watched the other officers talk and laugh together. None of them looked at her. When they did glance her way, she saw the same thing in their eyes. They thought she was just a kid who got lucky at the academy. She was 24 years old. Most of the other officers were older. Some had gray hair. Some had scars from real battles. Katie had neither. Her uniform was still new and clean. Her hands were soft. She had never fired a weapon in anger or watched a friend die in space. UES Defiant was her first real assignment. It was supposed to be an honor. The ship was one of the best in the human fleet. But Katie knew why she was really here. The war was going badly. The aliens were winning. The military was getting desperate. They were trying anything now, even putting kids in charge of weapons. Lieutenant Dan Collins whispered something to the man next to him. They both looked at Katie and smiled, not a nice smile. The kind of smile that said they knew a joke she did not understand. Katie had seen that smile many times since coming aboard the ship. "Hey, Academy girl," Collins called out. "You ready for your first real fight? This is not like the computer games back at school." Katie felt her face get hot. She wanted to say something back, but she had learned it was better to stay quiet. Words just made things worse. Instead, she opened her tablet and looked at the data again. Battle reports, ship movements, alien attack patterns. Numbers and charts that told a story most people could not read, but Katie could read it. She had always been good with numbers and patterns. Even as a child, she could see things others missed. Her teacher said she had a gift. Her classmates said she was weird. Both were probably right. Commander Jake Phillips walked into the room. He was a big man with a deep voice. He had been in the military for 20 years. He had fought in 12 major battles. Katie had read his file. He was a good officer. He was also not very smart. "Listen up," Phillips said. The room got quiet. "We have a new mission. The Zephyrians are moving again. They hit 3 more colonies last week. Command thinks they might be coming for the Kepler station next." Katie had studied the Zephyrians for months. They were not like humans. They looked like giant insects made of glass and metal. Their ships were beautiful but deadly. Smooth curves that cut through space like knives. Weapons that could melt steel from 1,000 miles away. The worst part was how smart they were. They seemed to know what humans would do before humans did it. Every battle went the same way. Human ships would attack. Zephyrian ships would be waiting in exactly the right place. Human weapons would miss. Zephyrian weapons would not. "The good news," Phillips continued, "is that we have more ships this time, 12 against their usual 6. The bad news is that their 6 ships are worth about 20 of ours." Katie looked at her tablet again. She had been tracking Zephyrian movements for weeks. There was something strange about their attacks, something that did not make sense. They were too perfect, too clean, like they were following the script. "Morrison," Phillips said suddenly. Katie looked up. Everyone was staring at her. "I hear you have some ideas about the aliens. Command wants to hear them. Though I cannot say I understand why they care what a kid thinks." Katie stood up. Her legs felt shaky. She had practiced this speech in her room many times. But saying it to a room full of officers who thought she was a joke was different. "Sir, I think the Zephyrians are using computers to predict our moves," she said. Her voice sounded small in the big room. "They study our old battles and figure out what we will do next." Collins laughed. "Of course they use computers. So do we. What is your point?" Katie took a deep breath. "My point is that computers can only predict things that follow patterns, but humans do not always follow patterns. Sometimes we do crazy things, things that do not make sense. Computers cannot predict crazy." The room was quiet now. Phillips looked confused. Some of the other officers looked interested. Collins just looked annoyed. What are you saying, Morrison? Phillips asked. I am saying we have been fighting like machines trying to beat other machines. But we are not machines. We are human. And humans can be unpredictable. Katie walked to the front of the room. She had their attention now. She could feel it. She turned on the big screen and showed them her charts. Look at this, she said, pointing to the data. Every battle we have fought follows the same pattern. We attack from the left, they defend from the left. We attack from the right, they defend from the right. We split our forces, they split theirs. It is like they are reading our playbook. She changed the screen to show a different chart. But look at this battle from 6 months ago. The captain of the U's Brooklyn got angry and broke formation. He charged straight at the alien command ship. It was a stupid move. It should have gotten him killed. Katie paused for effect, but it worked. For about 30 seconds, the aliens did not know what to do. They had never seen a human ship act that way. The Brooklyn got 3 good hits before. They figured it out. Phillips was nodding now. So you think we should all act crazy? Not crazy, Katie said. Creative, adaptive, human. We should stop trying to outthink their computers and start acting like people. Collins stood up. This is ridiculous. You want us to throw away centuries of military training because some kid thinks we should act like maniacs? I want us to act like humans, Katie said firmly, because that is the one thing they cannot predict. The room erupted in argument. Some officers thought Katie was right. Others thought she was insane. Phillips held up his hand. For quiet. Morrison, he said, your ideas are interesting. But you have never been in a real battle. You do not know what it is like when people are shooting at you, when your friends are dying. Theory is nice. Reality is different. Katie felt the familiar sting of dismissal. She was used to it by now. But this time, she did not back down. Sir, with respect, doing the same thing over and over while expecting different results is insane. We have lost every major battle for 2 years. Maybe it is time to try something new. Phillips looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Maybe you are right, Morrison. We will find out soon enough. The Zephyrians are coming. And when they get here, we will see if your theories work in the real world. Katie sat back down. The other officers were still talking, but she was not listening anymore. She was thinking about patterns and chaos, about computers and humans, about the difference between being smart and being unpredictable. Tomorrow, she would find out if she was right, or if she was just another academy kid who thought she knew better than everyone else. Either way, she would not have to wait long to find out. 3 days later, Katie stood at her station on the bridge of the UE's Defiant. Her hands were sweating inside her gloves. The ship hummed around her, filled with the quiet tension that came before battle. Through the main screen, she could see the Kepler station hanging in space like a metal flower. It was beautiful and peaceful. That would not last long. Contact, called out Lieutenant Sarah Wells from the sensor station. 6 ships dropping out of hyperspace. Zephyrian configuration. Katie felt her stomach drop. She had studied the aliens for months, but seeing them in person was different. The Zephyrian ships appeared on the screen like deadly jewels. Each one was perfectly smooth, made of what looked like living crystal. They caught the light from the nearby star and threw it back in rainbow patterns. Beautiful and terrifying. At the same time, Commander Phillips gripped the arms of his command chair. Signal the fleet. Standard attack formation. By the book. Katie watched the human ships move into position. 12 vessels against 6. It should have been an easy fight. But Katie knew it might be. She had seen this dance before in the battle reports. The humans would attack using their training. The aliens would be ready and waiting. Admiral Lisa Carter's voice crackled over the come from the flagship UE's Liberty. All ships. This is Admiral Carter. Execute attack pattern Delta. Stay in formation and watch your spacing. The human fleet moved forward like they had practiced 1,000 times. The Defiant took its place in the attack formation. Around them, the other ships fell into perfect lines. It was exactly what the military manual said to do. It was also exactly what the aliens expected. The Zephyrian ships moved in response. Not fast, not panicked. They moved with the calm certainty of someone who knew what was coming next. Their crystal hulls began to glow as their weapons charged up. Katie could almost see the alien computers calculating firing solutions, predicting where each human ship would be in 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Incoming fire, Wells called out. The space around the human fleet lit up with energy beams. Bright blue lines of death that cut through the darkness. The aliens fired with perfect accuracy. They knew exactly where each human ship would be, because humans always did the same thing. The U.S. Ranger took a direct hit. Its shields flared and died. The U.S. Warrior tried to dodge, but the alien beam followed it perfectly. More hits. More damage. The human formation began to break apart as ships tried to avoid the deadly accurate fire. Return fire, Phillips ordered. All weapons. The human ships fired back. Red laser beams and missile trails streaked toward the alien vessels. Most of the shots missed. The few that hit barely scratched the crystal hulls. The aliens had predicted the human attack patterns and positioned themselves perfectly to avoid. Damaged. Katie watched it all happen exactly as she had feared. The humans were fighting like machines, following their training, doing what the manual said. And the aliens were ready for every move. "Sir," Katie said, her voice tight with urgency. "Request permission to take tactical control of our wing." Phillips turned to look at her. His face was grim. 2 human ships were already badly damaged. The battle was going exactly like all the others. "Morrison, this is not the time for experiments." "Sir, we are losing, right now, the same way we always lose. Please let me try." Another explosion lit up the screen as the U.S. Boston took a critical hit. Phillips closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, Katie saw desperation there. "Morrison, you have control of the Defiant, Ranger, and Warrior. Try your crazy theories. God help us all." Katie's hands flew over her console. She opened a comm channel to the other 2 ships in her wing. "Ranger, Warrior, this is Defiant Tactical Control. Lieutenant Ben Harper, Lieutenant Amy Foster, do you copy?" "We copy, Defiant," came Harper's voice from the Ranger. "Though I hope you know what you are doing." "None of us know what we are doing," Katie replied. "That is the point. Forget everything they taught us at the academy. We are going to fight like humans, not like robots." She looked at the tactical display. The alien ships were moving in their perfect patterns, reacting to human movements with computer precision. But computers could only react to things they understood. Katie was about to give them something they had never seen before. "Harper, I need you to do something that makes no sense. Break formation and fly straight at the biggest alien ship, but when you get halfway there, stop. Just stop and sit there. That is suicide," Harper replied. "Trust me." "Foster, when Harper stops, I want you to fly in a circle around him, not an attack pattern. Just fly in circles like you are bored. Morrison, have you lost your mind?" Foster's voice was sharp with disbelief. Katie ignored the question. She was watching the alien ships on her screen. They were already starting to react to Harper's movement. Their formation was shifting to intercept him. But something was wrong. Their movements were not as smooth as before. They were hesitating. "Now," Katie commanded. As Harper's ship stopped in empty space, she pushed the Defiant into a wild spiral that no tactical manual had ever described. She was flying on instinct now, making split-second decisions that had no logic behind them. The alien ships tried to tree human vessels, but their perfect coordination was breaking down. Their computers were getting confused. Harper, sitting motionless in space while Foster flew in circles, made no tactical sense. The alien prediction algorithms were trying to find the pattern, the strategy, the logical next move. There was none. All ships, Katie broadcast to the entire human fleet. Stop following the manual. Start following your instincts. Be unpredictable. Be human. Some of the fleet commanders listened. The UES Denver suddenly reversed course and flew backwards. While firing, the U's Phoenix began rolling like a fighter plane instead of staying level. The U's Tampa started firing at empty space, creating debris clouds that served no obvious purpose. The Zephyrian formation began to buckle. For the first time in the war, their movements looked uncertain. Their perfect crystal ships were still deadly, but they were no longer dancing 3 steps ahead of every human move. Katie felt a surge of excitement. It was working. The aliens were reacting instead of predicting. They were confused, and confused enemies made mistakes. Harper, Foster. Now we attack. But not where they expect. Hit the ship that is farthest from where logic says we should hit. The 3 ships of Katie's wing dove toward a Zephyrian vessel that was completely out of position. The alien ship tried to turn to face them, but it was too late. Human weapons found their target. The crystal hull cracked and glowed with internal fire. First blood to humanity. Admiral Carter's voice came over the comm, filled with something Katie had not heard in months. Hope. All ships follow Morrison's lead. Fight. Like people, not like machines. The battle was far from over. But for the first time since the war began, humans were not losing. The space battle turned into something no one had ever seen before. Katie watched her tactical display as the human fleet stopped fighting like a military force and started fighting like a pack of angry humans. Ships that should have stayed in formation were spinning and diving like dolphins in an ocean. Weapons that should have fired in coordinated volleys were shooting at random targets. It was chaos. It was madness. It was working. Morrison, Admiral Carter's voice came through the comm. What you are doing is either brilliant or insane. The aliens looked confused. Katie smiled as she watched the Zephyrian ships on her screen. The perfect crystal vessels were still deadly, but they were no longer moving with their usual grace. They were reacting now instead of predicting. Their formations were breaking apart as they tried to respond to human movements that made no sense. Foster, Harper, Katie called to her wing. Mates, see that big alien ship on the left? The one that looks like a glass cathedral? I want you to fly straight at it, but when you get close, do not attack it. Just fly past it really fast and wave. Wave? Harper's voice was full of disbelief. Morrison, we are in space. They cannot see us wave. They can see your ship move in ways that serve no purpose, Katie replied. Their computers are trying to figure out why you would risk your lives just to fly past them. While they are thinking about that, the rest of us will hit them from behind. Katie pushed the Defiant into another impossible maneuver. She flew the ship upside down and backwards, firing at targets that were nowhere near her. It looked like she had gone crazy, but every crazy move had a purpose. Every nonsensical maneuver was part of a larger plan that no computer could predict because there was no pattern to predict. The Zephyrian ship that Foster and Harper buzzed tried to turn to follow them. That movement put it directly in the path of 3 other human ships. Red laser fire tore into the crystal hull. The alien vessel shuddered and began to leak atmosphere. Direct hit on the enemy flagship, called out Lieutenant Wells from the sensor station. Their shields are down to 60%. Katie felt a surge of excitement, but she also felt something else. Fear. The Zephyrians were learning. She could see it in their movements. They were starting to adapt to the chaos. Their computers were working overtime. Trying to find new patterns in the human madness, she had maybe 5 more minutes before they figured it out. "All ships," she broadcast to the fleet, "listen carefully. The aliens are starting to understand what we are doing. We need to get even more unpredictable. I want every ship to do the most tactically stupid thing you can think of. Something that would get you court-martialed in peacetime." The response was immediate. The USS Denver fired all its missiles at once, not at enemy ships, but at empty space. The explosions created a cloud of debris that served no military purpose. The USS Tampa started spinning like a top while firing in all directions. The USS Miami began flying in a figure-8 pattern that made no sense at all. But Katie was watching the Zephyrian command ship, the largest of the crystal vessels. It sat in the center of their formation like a glass spider in a web. She could see data streams flowing between it and the other alien ships. It was not just commanding the battle. It was learning from it. Every human move was being recorded, analyzed, and filed away. The Zephyrian computers were working to find the patterns in the chaos, and they were starting to succeed. "Harper, Foster," Katie said urgently, "I need you to do something really crazy. See that command ship? I want you to ram it." The comm channel went silent for a moment. Then Harper's voice came back, tight with shock. "Morrison, did you just order us to commit suicide?" "Not suicide," Katie replied, her fingers flying over her controls. "Sacrifice. But not the kind you think. I want you to fly straight at that command ship like you are going to ram it. But at the last second, eject in your escape pods. Let your empty ships hit them." It was the most desperate plan Katie had ever made, but she was out of time and out of options. The Zephyrians were adapting too quickly. In another few minutes, they would be able to predict even the most chaotic human movements. "You are asking us to give up our ships," Foster said. "I am asking you to trust me," Katie replied. "One more time." There was a pause. Then Harper's voice came back, steady and determined. "Roger that, Morrison. We trust you." Katie watched as the Ranger and Warrior broke away from the fleet and flew straight toward the Zephyrian command ship. The massive crystal vessel turned to face them, its weapons charging. The other alien ships moved to support it, exactly as Katie had hoped. At the last possible moment, 2 escape pods shot out of the human ships. The empty vessels, now flying on autopilot, continued their collision course. The Zephyrian command ship tried to destroy them with its weapons, but it was too late. The 2 human ships struck the crystal hull and exploded. The command ship survived, but its perfect surface was cracked and scarred. More importantly, it was distracted. While all the alien ships were focused on the suicide attack, the rest of the human fleet moved in from all sides. "Now!" Katie screamed into the comm. "All ships, maximum firepower. Hit them while they are looking the wrong way." The space around the Zephyrian fleet lit up with human weapons fire. Red lasers and white missile trails converged on the alien ships from every direction. The crystal hulls, so beautiful and perfect, began to crack and shatter under the combined assault. One Zephyrian ship exploded in a shower of glittering fragments. Then another. The remaining 4 tried to retreat, but they were surrounded. Their perfect coordination was gone. Their predictive advantage was broken. Katie watched as the last Zephyrian ship tried to escape. Its crystal hull was cracked in a dozen places. Atmosphere was leaking out in frozen streams. The ship that had once looked like a work of art now looked like a broken piece of glass. "Cease fire," Admiral Carter ordered. "Let them go." Katie slumped in her chair as the surviving Zephyrian ships limped away into hyperspace. Around her, the bridge of the Defiant was silent except for the hum of machinery and the sound of people breathing hard. "Morrison," Commander Phillips said quietly, "what you did today was either the work of a genius or the luck of a fool." Katie looked at the tactical display. 4 Zephyrian ships destroyed. 2 human ships lost, but their crews were safe in escape pods. For the first time in 2 years, humanity had won a real victory. "Sir," she said, "I think it was both. The battle was over. The war was not." But something had changed in that patch of space near Kepler Station. Humanity had remembered what it was like to be human. And the aliens had learned that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one who refuses to follow the rules. Katie Morrison sat in her chair and smiled. She was no longer the academy kid who got lucky. She was the officer who had found a way to win. 6 months after the battle at Kepler Station, Katie Morrison walked into the same briefing room where officers had once laughed at her ideas. But everything was different now. When she entered, conversations stopped. Not because people thought she was a joke, but because they respected her. The young woman who had been called an academy kid was now Commander Morrison, hero of the human fleet. The room was packed. Officers from 12 different ships had come to hear her speak. Some had flown in from other star systems. Word of the Morrison doctrine had spread through the entire military. Everyone wanted to learn how to fight like she did. Katie looked around the room and saw faces she recognized. Lieutenant Ben Harper was there, now promoted to commander after his brave sacrifice at Kepler Station. Lieutenant Amy Foster sat next to him, also wearing new rank stripes. They had both volunteered to fly empty ships into the alien command vessel. Their courage had helped win the battle, but Katie also saw new faces, young officers fresh from the academy. They looked at her the way she had once looked at the older officers, with respect and a little bit of fear. She was only 25 years old, but she had already changed the way humans fought wars. Admiral Lisa Carter walked to the front of the room. She was a tall woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She had been the one to trust Katie during the battle when everyone else thought her ideas were crazy. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Carter began, 6 months ago we were losing this war. The Zephyrians had destroyed 3 colonies and were moving toward Earth. Their technology was better than ours. Their ships were faster. Their weapons were stronger. By every measure that mattered, they should have won. The room was completely quiet. Everyone knew this story, but they wanted to hear it again. "But they did not win," Carter continued. "They did not win because of one person who refused to fight the way everyone expected." Commander Morrison showed us that sometimes the best weapon is not the biggest gun or the fastest ship. Sometimes the best weapon is the human mind. Katie felt her cheeks get warm. She still was not used to being the center of attention, but she had learned to accept it. What she had done at Kepler Station had saved lives. It had given humanity hope. If being famous helped win the war, she would accept being famous. "The Morrison Doctrine has been studied by every military academy in human space," Carter said. "We have taught it to thousands of officers. But today, we are here for a different reason. Today, we are here to make it official." Carter picked up a sealed envelope from the table. Katie recognized the symbol on it. It was from the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the highest military authority in human space. "Commander Morrison," Carter said, "your tactical innovations have been classified at the highest level. The Joint Chiefs have decided that your methods are too valuable to be used openly. From now on, when human forces need to implement adaptive chaos tactics, they will use a special code." Katie's heart began to beat faster. She had heard rumors about this for weeks. Military codes were only given to the most important weapons and strategies. She had never imagined she would be important enough to get one. "Your codename, Commander, is Wildcard." The room erupted in applause. Officers stood up and clapped. Some of them were shouting. Katie felt tears in her eyes. She remembered sitting in this same room 6 months ago, listening to people whisper about the academy kid who thought she knew better than everyone else. When the noise died down, Carter continued, "From this day forward, when human commanders need to break the rules and fight with creative chaos, they will call for Wildcard Protocol. This code will remind them that humans are not machines. We do not have to follow patterns. We can be unpredictable. We can be illogical. We can be magnificently, dangerously human. Katie stood up. She wanted to say something, but the words felt stuck in her throat. How do you thank people for believing in you when you barely believed in yourself? Thank you, she finally managed to say. 6 months ago, you all thought I was crazy. Maybe I was crazy, but crazy worked. And if being crazy is what it takes to keep humanity safe, then I will keep being crazy. The applause started again, but Katie held up her hand. She had more to say. But I want you all to remember something. The wildcard protocol is not about me. It is about all of us. It is about remembering that we are human. When the aliens study our battles, they see patterns and logic. They see things they can predict and counter. But they cannot predict the human heart. They cannot predict creativity. They cannot predict the moment when someone decides to do something that makes no sense but feels right. Katie looked around the room at all the faces watching her. Some of these people would die in future battles. Some would live to become heroes. All of them would carry the lesson of Kepler Station with them. The Zephyrians are still out there, she continued. They are learning from what happened at Kepler Station. They are building new computers and new algorithms. They are trying to find ways to predict our chaos. And maybe someday they will succeed. But when that day comes, we will find new ways to be unpredictable, because that is what humans do. We adapt, we survive, we refuse to be beaten. The room was quiet now. Everyone was listening carefully. So when you hear the words wildcard protocol, remember what they really mean. They mean that no matter how powerful the enemy is, no matter how advanced their technology, no matter how impossible the odds, humans will find a way to win. Because we are not just fighting with ships and weapons. We are fighting with something no computer can understand. We are fighting with the human spirit. Katie sat down. The applause this time was different, not excited, but respectful. The kind of applause that said people understood what she was really talking about. After the ceremony, Katie walked to the window of the briefing room. Outside, she could see the stars. Somewhere out there, the Zephyrians were rebuilding their fleets and planning their next attack. They would be back. The war was far from over. But humanity was ready now. They had learned the lesson of Kepler Station. They had learned that being human was not a weakness. It was their greatest strength. Katie Morrison smiled as she looked out at the stars. Let the aliens come with their crystal ships and their perfect computers. Let them try to predict what humans would do next. They would find out what she had discovered 6 months ago. Humans were predictably unpredictable. And that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The Academy kid who had been laughed at was gone. In her place stood Wildcard, the officer who had taught humanity how to win by refusing to lose like everyone expected. The war would continue. But now humanity knew something they had forgotten. They knew how to be human. And that would make all the difference.